if p of x equals 5 times x squared plus 1 plus 16, what is the value of p of 11? Now, guys, before we talk about this, I want you to take 1 second and look at the things I highlighted. What is the difference between them? So now that you've taken a second, you've probably said that the difference between them is that this has an x inside of the parentheses, this has an 11. And you are right. So guys, what is this question asking us? This question is asking us that when we replace x with 11, what would our value be? What number would we get when we simplify this? So instead of x squared, we're going to have 11 squared. And everything else is going to stay the same, right? Because that's the only x that I have. So basically, guys, they want us to simplify this expression. Now, you could do it by hand, or you could just type it into your calculator. 5 times 11 squared plus 1. Oh, wait, the square is wrong. The square goes over here. Plus 16. So when I type that into my calculator, I replace my x squared with 11. I got 626. And before I let you guys go, let me show you. There's even an easier way in case you forget to replace your x. You could simply type your equation they give you. And then type this expression, p of 11. When you do that, the calculator knows that you want to replace the x up here with an 11, and it gives you the same exact number, or answer choice D. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at real quick at another type of problem that is very similar to this, but instead of asking you to find the y value, they're going to ask you to find the x value. So let me pause this real quick. This next problem is a little bit different from the one we just saw, because this time they want you to find f of x. They don't want you to find f of a number. They want you to find the y value. In the previous one, I'm sorry, they want you to find the x value. In the previous one, they want you to find the y value, but in this one, they want you to find the x. So let's read the problem. The total number of seats in an auditorium is modeled by f of x, where x represents number of rows of seats. So guys, we already have our variables right off the bat from the first sentence. It said number of seats. I'm just going to say number seats. Number of seats in an auditorium is modeled by f of x. That means number of seats equals f of x. And x, if we kept reading, it said x represents number of rows of seats. So number of rows is x. So the question is, how many rows are there in the auditorium if it has a total of 416 seats? And if we notice, we said seats was f of x. So what they said is, what is x? How many rows is there? So what is x if we know f of x equals 416? Well, just like the last problem, guys, our calculator can do this math for us, right? So if we know f of x equals 416, I'm going to go ahead and type f of x equals 416. Now, the other thing that I know, guys, is that f of x is the equation 2x squared minus 6x. So now, guys, I actually have two different equations, and since I have two different equations, this becomes simply a system of equations. Now, on my graph, I seem to only have one equation. I only have one graph. That's because look at this number. It's a 416. It's really big, so I need to zoom out. So if I zoom out, there we go. Now I can see two lines. I have this parabola. Let me change the color so it's easy to tell. Have that parabola in red and then that straight line in blue. So how many rows is there in an auditorium of 616 seats? I need to find the solution to the system, or where they cross. So they actually cross at 2 points, this point and this point. Now, guys, according to this graph that I made, the number of rows was X. So the number on the left is X, and the number on the right is the number of seats. So this point over here on the left tells me that I have negative 13 rows. Well, that actually doesn't make sense. You can't have negative amount of rows, right? Rows are like where the people are sitting, and that doesn't make sense. So you can't have a negative. So that must mean it has to be this positive 16, or answer choice D.